Oh no! Shit!
Oh no, Benny.
Benny, you ate that one.
Fuck! Okay, the name is Benny, and this is Spellwhip 101. In this video, I'm going to show you everything you need to know about Spellwhip, as well as the tips and tricks that will help you maximize your damage. All the timestamps are in the description box below. Alright, let's get started. So why should you play Spellwhip? Well, you play Spellwhip simply because you are bored and you don't want to play Bokai anymore. Okay, the first pro is that she has relatively high damage if you can optimize your gameplay. A second pro is that she is very fun to play, very fun to solo. For party, she does relatively well in raids and most of the Redeemer battles. The two battles that you're going to struggle the most are Bridget and Laura. But I think this is the case for most characters, unless you're Bokai. Another pro is that she has a very diverse playstyle. You can use short range with Marcato Rush or long range with Stringendo Strike. So depending on the battles, you can mix the two playstyles together. It is really fun to play Spellwhip. Now, the con is that in order for you to maximize your damage, it's going to be quite expensive because you will need dash and calm enchant scrolls. These scrolls are quite expensive in the market right now. I highly recommend these two scrolls because they will allow you to overcome the number one barrier of Spellwhip, which is her SP consumption. If you can only afford one scroll, I recommend you getting calm enchant scroll. Another con is that you cannot phase tank if you want to maximize your damage. For some characters, there are no consequences for phase tanking. However, for Spellwhip, you will lose damage every time you take a hit. So no phase tanking. Another con is that she is quite difficult to master because she has the shortest iframe window out of all characters. But I will share with you a few tips and tricks to help you work around this issue. Okay, let's go over a couple of important settings. The first setting is your character's height. Make sure your character is at maximum height. This will allow you an easier time blocking, and you're not going to be pushed around by the boss that easily. The second setting is to have your auto aim on. Make sure you check this box, okay? So as I go through the skills here, you guys can also see the type of awakening stones that I use for each skill. And I think you guys can just copy mine. It's pretty straightforward. First, you have your normal dodge, which is this. And your longer dodge. You press spacebar 2 times. Okay? Now what's the difference? The shorter dodge, you cannot go through the boss. But with the longer dodge, you can. Okay? So for the longer dodge, it's good for gap closing as well as help you to get out of difficult situation. So for example, when Bridget is about to hit you with the KO, you can just go like that and get out really quickly. So next we have Mana Abyss mode. Okay, you press tab and you are in Mana Abyss mode. You see this icon right here? This is when you know you are in Mana Abyss mode. So 3 things happen in Mana Abyss mode. Number 1, every attack is going to consume mana, which is your blue bar right here. Okay? And number 2, your attacks are enhanced. Number 3, you have significantly less hit drag. Okay? You see how each attack consumes mana? Now what happens if you run out of mana? So when you run out of mana, it will switch you back to normal mode automatically. And every time you hit with a normal attack, you will generate mana. You see? So when you stop attacking, it will return you back to Mana Abyss mode. And now you are in Mana Abyss mode. The moment you start attacking, it will consume your mana again. Watch this. See? So at the start of the battle, you want to stay in Mana Abyss, and you want to stay in Mana Abyss for the entire duration of the battle. You never want to switch it back yourself, okay? You stay in Mana Abyss the entire time. Okay, next up we have Marcato Rush. Marcato Rush is your normal basic attack. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is just clicking your left button. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each additional hit will deal more damage than the last. So the first hit will deal very little damage. The second hit, more damage. The third hit, even more damage. And the fourth hit, 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth hit will deal the highest damage. Each attack will give you 1 stack, like this. Okay? Up to 10 stacks. You cannot go more than 10 stacks. If you want to do more than 10 stacks, you have to be in Mana Abyss mode. Okay, now we are in Mana Abyss mode. You see? So in Mana Abyss mode, each attack will give 2 stacks, up to 20 stacks. Okay, you cannot go higher than 20 stacks. Now at 20 stacks, you can use Accentato by pressing your right button. It's gonna look like this. And it will consume the 20 stacks. See, the 20 stack is gone. Accentato deals a lot of damage. Okay? And that's the whole goal of Spellwhip. The goal is to get to 20 stacks as soon as possible so you can use Accentato. Okay, now let's talk about Fierce Rondo, our very first active skills. So this is going to be your bread and butter. Very important skill. You should know the skill inside out. You're going to use the skill a lot. So it's going to cost you 200 SP, but through the command, it will reduce it by 50. So it will only cost you 150 SP to use it through the command. And the command is SW. Okay? Again, the command is SW. And now there are 2 ways that you can activate Fierce Rondo through the command. The first way is during Marcato Rush. This is Marcato Rush, your normal attack skills. And if you press SW, you will activate Fierce Rondo like this. Okay, that's the first way. Now the second way of using Rondo is right after Mana Dissonance. This is Mana Dissonance. Okay, so right after Mana Dissonance, and you press SW, you will play Rondo like this. Okay, that's the second way of activating Rondo. Okay, and remember, you always use the command when using Rondo. Okay, you never want to use it through like a key button. Always use the command SW. Now there are 4 reasons you should use Rondo. Number 1, the damage is really good. Okay. Number 2, the iframe you can get. It's quite a bit of iframe. Number 3, it restores mana. And number 4, it gives you 3 stacks. So let's talk about the iframe first. So again, let's take a look at this animation of Fierce Rondo. Okay, that's quite a long animation. However, you do not have iframe throughout the entire animation. You only have iframe when the whip is still moving. The moment the whip stops moving, that's when you no longer have iframe. Okay? Okay, let's look at it one more time. She's going to swing the whips 3 times. During that time, you have iframe. And then she's gonna stop, and then she's gonna stand up. During the stand up motion, you do not have iframe. Okay? So let's see this one more time. 2, 3, and stand up. Okay? So iframe during the movement of the whip, no iframe during the stand up animation. Okay? So make sure you keep that in mind when you're dodging stuff. Now let's go over the mana part. So Fierce Rondo is going to restore quite a bit of mana. Okay, let's see this. Let's pay attention to the mana bar, okay? The blue bar right here. Now, Fierce Rondo. Okay? Increasing mana. Okay? And let's look at the last thing about Fierce Rondo, which is giving you 3 stacks. So again, no stacks. Okay, now I'm gonna play Fierce Rondo. 1, 2, 3. 3 stacks. However, if you already have 10 stacks, okay, if you already have 10 stacks, Fierce Rondo will not give you any more stacks. Okay, still 10 stacks. No more than 10 stacks, okay? So Fierce Rondo cannot give you any more than 10 stacks. There are many ways that you can use Rondo in battles. And let's see this in action, actually. One thing I forgot to mention about Fierce Rondo is the cooldown. Let's talk about the cooldown. So the cooldown of Fierce Rondo is 10 seconds. Okay? Now, there is ways to reduce the cooldown. Every normal attack is going to reduce the cooldown of Fierce Rondo by 1 second. And there's 2 ways you can go about this. The first is you can normal attack through Marcato Rush, which is this right here. Your normal left click. Okay. The second way is through Stringendo Strike, like this. Okay. So those are the 2 ways that you can reduce the cooldown of Fierce Rondo. Now let's see this in action. I want you guys to pay attention to this right here. Okay. You're gonna see the cooldown right here. Okay. Let's do this. Fierce Rondo, Stringendo Strike. Fierce Rondo, Stringendo Strike. Fierce Rondo, Stringendo Strike. Fierce Rondo, Stringendo Strike. Okay, so you see that I can use Fierce Rondo a lot more often, a lot quicker, a lot more often, because Stringendo Strike reduces the cooldown significantly. Now let's try to reduce the cooldown using Marcato Rush. Okay, again, pay attention to this right here, to the cooldown right here. So Fierce Rondo, Marcato Rush, Fierce Rondo, Marcato Rush, Fierce Rondo, Marcato Rush, Fierce Rondo. So you can see, I can still reduce the cooldown of Fierce Rondo, but it's not as fast, right? So when using Marcato Rush, it's not as fast compared to Stringendo Strike, because Stringendo Strike you hit a lot faster. So you can reduce the cooldown significantly faster. Okay, so keep that in mind. Another way of getting to 20 stacks is by using Stringendo Strike, this skill. So this is how you use Stringendo Strike. You press spacebar, and then you hold down your left click. like this. Okay, and you cannot move during the animation. Okay, so for Stringendo Strike, in normal mode, every 2 attacks will give you 1 stack. Again, every 2 attacks will give you 1 stack. Up to 10 stacks, like this. See, now we are at 10 stacks. In order to get past 10 stacks, you need to be in Mana Abyss mode. So let's turn on Mana Abyss mode. Okay, now Mana Abyss mode is on, you see? So in Mana Abyss mode, every single attack will give you 1 stack. Up to 20 stacks, like this. Okay, now we are at 20 stacks. At 20 stacks, you can use Accentato again by using your right button, right click. It's gonna look like this. And it will consume the 20 stacks and deal a lot of damage. So one tip for using Stringendo Strike is that you can click repeatedly, click your left click repeatedly to increase the attack speed, like this. See, it's attacking really fast. Another tip about Stringendo Strike is when you are using Stringendo Strike, you are locked in animation. You can't really move or block from this. So in order to block, you have to press spacebar and then another spacebar. Okay? The reason for that is you can only block during Marcato Rush, which is this. This is Marcato Rush. And you can only block from this. Right? So from Stringendo Strike, which is this, you need to return to Marcato Rush by pressing spacebar. And then from Marcato Rush, you can then continue to block. Okay? So it's gonna look like this in real time. Stringendo Strike, block. Okay? So you press spacebar 2 times. Stringendo Strike, block. Okay? Now, same thing goes for using Fierce Rondo. So in order for you to use Fierce Rondo, you have to be in Marcato Rush, which is this. This is Marcato Rush. Okay? So in order to use Rondo, all you have to do is press SW, and that's Fierce Rondo. You can only use it in Marcato Rush. If you do this in Stringendo Strike, you cannot use Marcato Rush by pressing SW. What you have to do is to return to Marcato Rush through spacebar and then SW to use Fierce Rondo. Okay? So when you do it fast, it's gonna look like this. From Stringendo Strike to Fierce Rondo. Okay? So essentially what you do is you press spacebar and then SW. Okay? So that's how you transition from Stringendo Strike into a block or Stringendo Strike into Fierce Rondo. Okay, one last thing about Stringendo Strike is the range of Stringendo Strike. You can hit the boss from pretty far away, and you will reach maximum range on Stringendo Strike after about 1 second. Okay? See, I'm quite far away, but yet I can still hit the boss. Now, this is very useful because in some situation, it will be better for you to stay away from the boss and can still attack the boss rather to stay close. Let's see this in action.
Ain't greedy. I'm low player. Oh, I'm gonna have to confused.
Okay, now let's talk about your block. This is very important. The iframe on this block is 0.08. It is very short, but the reason why is because it allows you to block consecutive attacks. So you can block 4, 5, 6, 7 hits in a row, which is very, very good. And when you do it right, it's very responsive. Okay, so like this. Oh shit! Oh shit! Boom! Oh shit! Come on! God damn it! This piece of shit, man! Get the fuck out of here! Alright, let's just see the video. Let's see this in action. Okay, now I'm going to show you a few tips and tricks on blocking. When it comes to blocking, you should consider dodging into a block. This is going to increase your iframe window because you have iframe from the dodge and you have iframe from the block. So it's gonna look like this: dodge, block, dodge, block, dodge, block, dodge, block. Okay? Now another thing you should do is alternating block and dodge. So say you're joining a party and it's really laggy and you find yourself getting hit after dodging or after blocking because the block has such short iframe. It has 0.08 seconds. So you try to block consecutively and you keep failing and you keep getting hit. What do? You should consider alternating block and dodge. It's gonna look like this: block, dodge, block, dodge, block, dodge. Okay, to avoid the attack, because this way you will ensure that you have better iframe, because now you are combining the iframe of a dodge and not just the iframe of the block. Now, what happens if you fail your block? For example, you mistime the attack of the boss and you block a little bit too early or you block a little bit too late and you miss the block. What's gonna happen? When you miss the block, you should consider dodging immediately. The reason for this is because when you miss your block, you're going to be stuck in an animation and you will not be able to block again until you break out of that animation. There are 3 ways you can break out that animation. The safest way is through a dodge. The second way is just move forward or move to the side or just move a little bit and then you can block again. The third way is through a normal attack like this and then you can block again. But the safest way again is just to dodge because you have iframe. Okay, let's see this in action.
gonna die. I'm actually gonna die. I'm playing so risky.
Okay, I failed 3 times here. Fail, dodge, fail, dodge, fail, dodge, block, 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 counter. Okay, after the block, you can counter. So let's talk about the counter now. There are 2 types of counter. The normal counter and the enhanced counter. The normal counter does less damage and the command is AD. So it's gonna look like this. Block AD. That's the normal counter. One more time. Block AD. That's the normal counter. Now the second type of counter is the enhanced counter. And the command is ASD. This is going to cost you 50 SV. Okay? Now the enhanced counter. Block ASD. Okay, one more time. Block ASD. That's the enhanced counter, okay? Now, 2 ways of using counter. The first is I just show you is after a block, so you can counter after a block, right? The second way of using the counter is through dodging, like this. Dodge, counter. Dodge, counter. Dodge, counter. Okay? The command is going to be the same. The command is going to be the same. So you can dodge and normal counter, or you can dodge and enhance counter. The command is the same. So what else do I need to talk about this? So 2 things. The first is you can block both physical and projectiles, but you can only counter from physical attacks. Okay? You can block from both physical and projectiles, but you can only counter from physical attacks. Okay, that's number 1. Second, counter damage. So after every single block, your counter damage is going to increase. So for example, you block 1 time and then you counter, and you deal 100 damage. Okay, you block 2 times and then you counter. Now the damage is going to be 120. Now you block 3 times and then you counter. The damage is going to be 160. So after each consecutive block, your counter damage is going to increase by about 20%. Roughly 20%. Okay? And the damage only increase up to 3 consecutive blocks. The 4th one does not count. The 5th one does not count. The 6th one does not count. Only up to 3 consecutive blocks. Okay, so that's the counter damage. Now let's see this in action. Up next, we have Mana Dissonance. This is your absorb skill. You can absorb projectiles coming to you. It's gonna look like this. Okay, just right click. That's what it's gonna look like. And it's going to absorb projectiles. Doesn't matter how many, it could be 1, it could be 10, it could be 20. If you time it right, it will absorb all of them and turn all of them into mana. This is very useful in Valor. Let's see this in action. Next, let's talk about Inspiration. This is an active skill that's going to cost you 500 SP. What it does is it's going to give you a full stamina bar and a stamina buff that's going to give you 8 stamina per second for roughly 30 seconds. There are 2 ways you can activate this skill, okay? Let's see this. There's 2 ways. Now, one way is just through the active hotkey button. So for me, it's number 1. So for me, just press number 1, and there you go. There you go, you activated the skill. Now, another way of activating it is through the command key after a successful block. So the command key for this is DSA, okay? So after a successful block, you press DSA and it will activate Inspiration. And it's going to look like this. Okay? Now what's the difference? The difference is that if you activate it through the block, you do have iframe for about roughly almost 2 seconds. Okay? But if you activate it through the hotkey, for me it's number 1, there will be no iframe. See? See? I activated it. It's activated now, but I still got hit because there was no iframe. So again, you would want to activate through the block. Okay? Let's try that again. Block. Inspiration. See? There's the iframe for you. Okay? Now, one thing you need to know about the skill is that you can reduce the SP consumption by 50 for each successful block. And you can do that up to 3 times. So if you block successfully 3 times in a row, and then you use Inspiration, it's going to reduce the SP cost to 350 instead of 500. Okay? Next, we have Motivation. This is going to be similar to Inspiration, but instead of giving you stamina, this is going to give you HP. Okay? So upon activating it, you will restore 2000 HP. And then it's going to give you a buff that's going to give you 55 HP per second for roughly 20 seconds. And similar to Inspiration, for Motivation, you can also activate it through either a block or through a hotkey. For me, it's number 2. Okay? So let's see this in action. And so for me, just press number 2 and I can activate it like this. Again, without a block, there will be no iframe. Okay, the animation, there will be no iframe during the animation. But if I were to do it after a successful block, it will give me a little bit of iframe. Also, the command, by the way, is SW. So after a successful block, you press SW, it will activate Motivation. So let's see this. Okay, let's see this. Hit me SW, and there's your Motivation. Okay? One more time. There's your iframe. Okay? Alright, let's see this in action. should you use inspiration or motivation after the first block, or should you wait after 3 consecutive blocks? Now let's take a look at this example where I use inspiration right after the very first block. So here, block, inspiration, block, counter. So you can see I can counter the last hit for damage. Now let's take a look at the exact same combo, but this time I'm going to use inspiration after 3 consecutive blocks. First block, second block, third block, and then inspiration. No counter, no damage. So depending on the situation, let's say if you're really low on SP, then you can try to fish up to 3 consecutive blocks to reduce the SP cost. But if you have plenty of SP, I highly recommend you use inspiration or motivation after the very first block. Okay, now let's talk about Receding Interlude. This one is a very interesting one. It's gonna look like this. You press tap, and she goes like that, okay? She kind of like retreat like that, okay? There are 2 ways of using this. Number 1 is during Marcato Rush. This is Marcato Rush, and you press tap. There you go. That's your Receding Interlude. A second way is during Stringendo Strike. This is your Stringendo Strike, and you press tab. There's your Receding Interlude. Okay? Now notice one thing. If you were using Marcato Rush and then you use Receding Interlude, it will return you back into Marcato Rush. You can continue going. Okay? And if you were to use Stringendo Strike, you press, and then it will continue using Stringendo Strike. Okay? So it will resume you to the previous attack that you were doing. Now, why should you use Receding Interlude? Number 1, it helps you dodge an attack. Number 2, it gives you stack because it acts like a normal attack. So it will give you stack just like a normal attack would. Number 3, it restores stamina. Number 5, it gives you iframe. Number 6, it switches you back to Mana Abyss mode. Okay, let's go over the iframe first. You have iframe during the animation of Receding Interlude. This animation, okay? The iframe is going to be shorter if you press and release the tap button really quickly. So you tap and release right away, you have really short iframe. However, if you hold down on the tap button, you will have longer iframe, like this. Okay? You see, she backs off quite a bit of distance. Okay, so that's a longer distance, and it will give you more iframe. Okay? Now, about switching back to Mana Abyss. So Receding Interlude can switch you back to Mana Abyss mode. What do I mean by this? Let's say you are in Mana Abyss mode, right? And you are running out of mana. Okay, let's try to run out of mana real quick. Okay, now when you run out of mana, you will return to normal mode automatically, right? As you're hitting in normal mode, you are restoring mana, and when you are finished with the amount of mana that you want, you can press Receding Interlude, and it will return you back to mana mode. Okay? So let's see this in action. Okay, up next we have your ultimate Chaos Symphony. This is your ultimate 750 SP. This is essentially your hold skill. Is self-explanatory. 750 SP, and it's just gonna hold it. Now make sure that you're facing the boss when you're using this. If you face away from the boss, you will miss. Make sure you face the boss. It's gonna look like this. Okay, pay attention to the mana bar here. There you go. You gain quite a bit of mana. Okay, that's it. So next up we have Mana Capriccio. This is gonna cost you 750 SP, and upon use, it will restore instantly 240 mana. Now, for a skill that costs 750 SP, the damage is quite low. Actually, the damage is really low for 750 SP. So this skill is really situational. Okay, you do not want to spam this skill. So when should you use this skill? This skill is going to give you iframe throughout the entire animation. Okay, so you have roughly 4 seconds of iframe. So again, if you find yourself in a situation where you need to have iframe, and you have enough SP, go ahead and use the skill. That's the first scenario. The second scenario is prioritizing damage. So when you are in a situation where you are forced to either block or dodge the entire time, and you can't really do anything to deal damage, in that case, go ahead and use Mana Capriccio if you have enough SP. Okay? It's gonna look like this. It's pretty cool. And throughout the entire animation, again, you have iframe the entire time. You have almost 4 seconds of iframe. This is really good for iframe. Okay, let's see this in action. Alright, next up we have Staccato Burst. This is gonna cost 250 SP. Again, the damage here is really low for 250 SP. It restores slightly a little bit of mana. Again, you're not doing this if the mentality behind using the skill is not to do damage or to restore mana. The whole point of this is to gap close, okay? And it looks really fucking cool. So what you do, there's 2 input for this. Make sure you are in range for this. There's 2 input. The first input is through the hotkey. So for me, it's number 3. For me, I have it on number 3 right here. So the first input is to press number 3. And then the second input is going to be a directional key. So you can either land on the right of the boss or on the left of the boss, in front of the boss, or behind the boss. Okay? So I'm going to try to land on the left of the boss. Again, the first input is going to be number 3. The second input is going to be a directional key to the left. In this case, to the left will be A. Okay, so let's try this. There you go. So again, you have to practice enough to understand the range. If you are too far, if you're right here and you're trying to pull this off, you're not going to be able to pull this off. This is too far. Okay? You have to be in range in order for the first hit to hit the boss. Okay? Let's try this again, and this time I'm going to land on the right. Now, the first input is going to be the same, which is number 3. The second input is going to be D, which is a directional key. D is to the right here. Okay? So let's see. There you go. Let's see this in action. Alright, the last skill we have is Mana Transition. This is going to convert 250 SP to 100 mana. And the cooldown for this is roughly 25 seconds. Okay? You do have iframe in some of the animation. So let's look at the animation right here. Okay? She raises her hands up like this and then puts her hands down. The moment she puts her hands down, that's when you lose iframe. Okay? Again, she's going to raise her hands up and puts her hands down. The moment she puts her hands down, you no longer have iframe. Okay? When should you use Mana Transition? There's 2 scenarios where you should use Mana Transition. Number 1 is when you need the iframe. For example, you're about to die or something like that. The boss is tugging you. You don't know what to do. You're gonna die. Use Mana Transition to get the iframe. That will allow you some room to react. The second scenario is when you cannot attack the boss. So for example, if Bridget is flying around and she's teleporting everywhere, you cannot attack her, go ahead and use Mana Transition. Or during Balor, let's say Balor is on the horse and he's just running around the map, you cannot hit him, therefore go ahead and use Mana Transition. Okay? I do not recommend you spamming Mana Transition. Even though 200 SP for 100 mana is a pretty good deal, I do not recommend you spamming this. Because if you have the access to attack the boss, I think damage-wise, it will be better to attack the boss instead of trying to get Mana Transition. Okay, let's see this in action. Okay, speaking of Mana Transition, I'm going to show you a trick that I call double Mana Transition. I'm going to show you how you can use Mana Transition 2 times in a row. Okay? So let's say you find yourself in the situation where you have a lot of SP and you don't have a lot of mana. Okay? So what do? You use Mana Transition the first time and you use Motivation right after. See, you cannot use Mana Transition again because of the cooldown. However, you can use Motivation to cancel out the cooldown. Now the cooldown is reset. So you can again use Mana Transition 1 more time to get another 100 mana. Okay? So that's a double Mana Transition. Let's see it in action. Okay, let's do a quick recap of all the ways that you can gain mana. The first one is from normal attacking, right? The second way is through counter, right? The third way is through using Fierce Rondo, okay? The fourth way is mana transition, okay? Let's see, the fifth is through mana dissonance. You absorb projectiles, and that's gonna convert into mana. The where we at? The fifth, the sixth, whatever. The next one is the using mana Capriccio, which is this, right? And the last one is using your ultimate. That's gonna gain you mana as well. So those are all the ways that you can gain mana. Now, the three most common ones are going to be your number one, the normal attack, number two, your counter, and number three, Fierce Rondo. Those are the three most common ways that you're gonna use to get mana. Okay? Okay, let's talk about Accentato. When you reach 20 stacks, you can use Accentato to consume the 20 stacks and then deal a lot of damage. You will get full iframe throughout the entire animation of Accentato. You can decide to cancel out the iframe by using block or dodge to cancel out the animation, okay? What I recommend you do is right after Accentato, in order to cancel out the animation, you should use block and then go into Stringendo Strike. What do I mean by this? So block and then go into Stringendo Strike. It's gonna look like this. Block, Stringendo Strike. Okay? Again, block into Stringendo Strike. That's what I recommend you do right after Accentato. Again, we're gonna build 20 stacks. We use Accentato, and at the end of Accentato, we're gonna block and go into Stringendo Strike. This will help you continue your combo without having to wait for the animation to finish. Okay, let's see this in action. We're gonna turn on Mana Abyss mode. We're gonna get 20 stacks. Okay, now I'm at 20 stacks. So I'm gonna use Accentato, and then I'm gonna cancel it out by using block, and then I'm gonna go into Stringendo Strike. It's gonna be quite fast, okay? So here we go. Accentato, block into Stringendo Strike. Okay? That's what it's gonna look like. Okay. I'm gonna do it one more time here. We are at 17 stacks, okay? I'm gonna build it up to 20 stacks so I can use Accentato. And when I use Accentato, I'm going to cancel it out by using block and then into Stringendo Strike. Here we go. Accentato, block into Stringendo Strike. Okay? Now, another thing you can do with Accentato is to reposition yourself. When you are in the air, you can reposition yourself. So let's see. Okay, I'm at 20 stacks now, so I can use Accentato now. So let's say I want to reposition myself to the left of the boss. Okay, so all you have to do is do Accentato and use a directional key. For me, this case, I'm gonna press A. Okay, so let's reposition to the left of the boss like this. There you go. Okay, you can do that to the left, to the right, back, in the front, whatever. You can use that to reposition yourself as well. So let's see this in action. Okay, let's talk about your flinching skills. You can flinch the boss by using your E button when you have more than 10 stacks. It's gonna look like this. Okay, now you have 10 stacks. When you hit your normal attack and then you press E, you're going to flinch the boss. There you go. That's the flinch. Now it's a 1-minute cooldown. Okay? The tips and tricks here is that if you use motivation right after, it will cancel out the cooldown. And now the cooldown is reset, so you can flinch him again. Like this. There you go. And now you have another 1 minute. Okay, so remember that motivation is going to cancel out the cooldown of the flinching skill. It's going to reset that. So let's try that again. Motivation, reset the cooldown. Okay, now what if you flinch at 20 stacks? Now you have a 20 stacks. If you decide to flinch using E, it's going to go through by using Accentato. And it's going to look like this. Okay, so that is essentially using Accentato to flinch the boss. And again, it's going to be a 1 minute cooldown, but if you want to use it again, you can just cancel it out by using motivation. And now the cooldown is reset, you can start flinching it again. One last thing about Accentato is that it can activate full force. Now for full force, you can use full force after completing Redeemer battles 100 times. So for Sea of Reflection, after completing 100 times, you have full force level 1. And then for Dark Side of the Moon, 100 times, full force level 2. Tempering of the Sword, 100 times, full force level 3. So you can activate all of these full force with Accentato. Alright, you ever notice how when you stop moving, you start losing your stacks? See? 18, 17, 16. So when you stop moving, you will start to lose your stack. Also, when you run out of stamina, you will also lose your stack very, very quickly. So let's say, you get to about 13 stacks, and then there goes a cutscene. The cutscene starts, and now you can't really do anything, and you still continue to lose your stacks. So how do you overcome this problem? What you can do is to use an emote. For example, you can use the dance emote. Okay? You're dancing, so you are technically moving. Therefore, you're not going to lose your stacks. Another one you can do is use your sit emote. So you're sitting down, so you're technically still moving a little bit. So you're not going to lose your stacks. Right? So, you don't want to work really hard to get 20 stacks, and then there's a cutscene, and then at the end of the cutscene, you have 0 stacks. Oh, that's a sad day at the office. So use your emote. Okay, before I show you the damage rotations, I want you to take a step back and look at the big picture, the general idea of Spellwhip's gameplay. What is the idea? The idea of Spellwhip is to build to 20 stacks as soon as you can, so you can use Accentato to deal a tons of damage. That's it. All your other skills are tools for you to use to help you get to 20 stacks. That's it. That's the whole idea. Now, I know that every battle is going to be different. However, there are still certain rules you should follow. Number 1, you want to turn on Manabis mode at the beginning of the battle, and you want to stay in Manabis. Do not switch it off. Number 2, try not to get hit. Every time you get hit, you will lose 2 stacks, and it will cost you more stamina to build up those stacks again. Okay, so when you lose stacks, you ultimately lose mana. You don't want to get hit. Number 3, prioritize block and counter as you get to 20 stacks. You want to block as much as possible, you want to counter as much as possible, because the damage is really good for the counter, okay? The next one is, if you were to spam Stringendo Strike, make sure you have enough SP for inspiration, because Stringendo Strike is going to deplete your your stamina really quickly. When you're about to run out of stamina and you don't have enough SP, consider using Marcato Rush, because Marcato Rush is not going to cost that much stamina. The next one is, after a failed block, you should consider dodging immediately. That's the safest way. Okay? Now let's talk about rotation. Okay, there are essentially 3 different rotations that you can do. The first is just using Marcato Rush for everything. The second is using Stringendo Strike. And the third is using a combination of both. So I'm going to show you each one of them. Okay, this first rotation, we're only going to use Marcato Rush. Only Marcato Rush, okay? Let's take a look. First, I have my Mana Abyss mode activated, and I use my paw. Okay, again, just Marcato Rush all the way to 20 stacks, and then Accentato, and then repeat. Marcato Rush to 20 stacks, and then Accentato, okay, and repeat. Now we're gonna pause right here. We just do 2 rotation all the way up to 20 stacks, and we repeated it 2 times, 2 rotation. And because we had mana, but now we're gonna run out of mana. This is when it gets tricky, okay? So what happened when you run out of mana? So when you run out of mana, it will return you to normal mode. You are doing normal mode right now. You see it says not enough mana? You are doing normal attack right now to restore mana. The question is, how much mana should you restore until you switch back to Mana Abyss mode? Should you restore a little bit and then switch, or should you restore the entire bar and then you switch? What's the answer to this? Let's see this. You should normal attack and restore just enough mana so that when you use Fierce Rondo to switch back to mana mode. Yes, Fierce Rondo can switch you back to Mana Abyss mode. Okay, so you attack about 2 or 3 times to get just enough mana, and then you use Fierce Rondo. This is the Fierce Rondo animation right now. Let's take a look. Fierce Rondo. Okay, you finish with Fierce Rondo, and you have this much mana. With this much mana, you can continue your Marcato Rush from 10 stacks all the way to 20 stacks, and then Accentato. Okay, let's take a look. 20 stacks, Accentato. Okay, finish with Accentato. So when you finish with Accentato, you have very little mana left. This is the goal. Okay, this is the goal. If you finish with Accentato and you have the entire bar full of mana, you fucked up. Okay? That means your previous normal attack, you were attacking for way too long and you were getting way too much mana. It's not optimized. You want to be able to finish Accentato would end up with very little mana or no mana at all. Okay, let's see this one more time. We're going to continue with this rotation. So normal attacking, gaining mana, okay? Pay attention here. We're normal attacking to gain mana just enough to use Fierce Rondo right now. Fierce Rondo, finish with Fierce Rondo with this much mana. And I know that with this much mana, we can continue our rotation from 8 stacks all the way to 20 stacks. Okay? By the way, every time after you use Fierce Rondo, it's going to switch you back to Mana Abyss mode automatically. Okay? Alright, so let's continue. 20 stacks right here, Accentato. Finish with Accentato. Again, we're finished with Accentato right here. Look at the mana bar. We barely have any mana left. Again, this is the goal. Okay? You want very little left or no mana at all. Alright, let's continue one more time. Normal attacking, just enough. Fierce Rondo right here. Finish with Fierce Rondo. We gain this much mana in total. With this much, we should be able to get from 7 to 20 stacks. Let's see. 20 stacks, Accentato. Okay, finish with Accentato. Again, look how much mana we have left. Barely any. Again, this is the goal, okay? So this is how much mana you should get before switching back to Mana Abyss mode. Okay, we're gonna show it one more time. Normal attacking, just enough. Fierce Rondo to get that much mana. Now we go all the way to 20 stacks. 20 stacks, Accentato. Look at how much mana we have left. Okay, so that is the rotation only using Marcato Rush. Now the next one I'm going to show you is going to be a rotation using only Stringendo Strike. Okay, now before we go into explaining this video, I want you to know that the concept is going to be the same. We're going to, when we run out of mana, right here, we're going to start attacking with normal attack. Just enough so that when we use Fierce Rondo, we gain just enough mana to continue the combo all the way to 20 stacks. And when we finish with 20 stacks, we should have barely any mana left. That's the idea, okay? So let's see this. First off, Mana Abyss mode on, paw activated. Okay, we go into Stringendo Strike right away because this is only using Stringendo Strike, okay? No Marcato Rush here. Okay, going to 20 stacks. Now pay attention right here. At 20 stacks, we're going to use Accentato. And instead of waiting for Accentato animation to finish, we're going to cancel out Accentato's animation and then going right into another Stringendo Strike. Okay, it's going to happen really fast. Watch this. Cancel, go straight into Stringendo Strike again. Okay? Now, I want to pause right here because we're running out of mana. So this is, again, this is the crucial crucial moment right here. How much are you going to gain from normal attacking? This much. And then you're going to use Fierce Rondo. Fierce Rondo, finish with Fierce Rondo right here. So when you finish with Fierce Rondo, this is how much mana you get. And with this much mana, you can go from 12 all the way up to 20. Let's see. And Stringendo, yep, and Accentato, and finish. Okay, see, when you finish with Accentato, this is how much mana you have left. Very little. Okay? Again, this is the goal. When you finish with Accentato, you should have very little mana left or no mana at all. Okay, let's see this one more time. Okay, no mana. We're gonna normal attack just a little bit, and we're gonna use Fierce Rondo. Finish with Fierce Rondo with this much mana. So with this much mana, we're going to be able to get from 9 all the way to 20. And Accentato. And finish with Accentato. See? We finished with Accentato with barely any mana left. Okay, let's see this one more time. Normal attacking. Fierce Rondo. finish with Fierce Rondo with this much. And now with this much, you should be able to get from 10 to 20. Accentato. Okay, and now we're just repeating. Fierce Rondo. All the way up to 20 right now. And Accentato. Okay. Okay, so that's the second rotation using only Stringendo Strike. Now, let's move on to the third rotation. This rotation utilizes both Marcato Rush and Stringendo Strike. This is going to be confusing as fuck, but I'm going to try to explain my best here. Okay, start off, we always activate Mana Abyss mode, and we stay in Mana Abyss mode. We don't want to switch it off. So Mana Abyss on and Paul on. So we're going to use Marcato Rush all the way up to 20 stacks. Okay, Accentato right here. Now I want you to pay attention. This utilizes both Marcato Rush and Stringendo Strike, right? So right after this Accentato, we're going to cancel the animation of Accentato and then go right into a Stringendo Strike. There you go. Okay, now we are in Stringendo Strike. We're not finished yet. Right from Stringendo Strike, we're going to go immediately into Fierce Rondo. Watch this. Fierce Rondo. Okay, now finished with Fierce Rondo, we will go back to Marcato Rush and continue our combo all the way up to 20 stacks. Marcato Rush. 20 stacks. Okay, again, every time you use Accentato, you're going to want to cancel the animation of Accentato and then go straight into Stringendo Strike. Okay, so Accentato right here, cancel animation, go into Stringendo Strike, and then immediately go into Fierce Rondo. Okay, right after Fierce Rondo, now we go back to Marcato Rush to finish the combo off. 20 stacks, Accentato. Okay, so now we're running out of mana. Again, this is the crucial moment. What do you do when you run out of mana? So we cancel animation into Stringendo Strike, and we continue. We don't use Fierce Rondo just yet. We continue on Stringendo Strike to get just enough mana. So when we use Fierce Rondo, we have enough to continue Marcato Rush in Mana Abyss mode from 10 all the way to 20. Let's see this. All the way to 20. So you can Accentato and then repeat the process. Okay? So that's the whole point right here. We're going to use Accentato. We're gonna cancel out the animation of Accentato using Stringendo Strike. And using Stringendo Strike to build enough mana so that after we use Fierce Rondo, we have enough mana to continue the entire combo using Marcato Rush. Okay, let's see it. So normal attacking with Stringendo Strike to build just enough mana, and then you go into Fierce Rondo right here. Finish with Fierce Rondo with this much mana right here. And with that much mana, you can continue Marcato Rush all the way up to 20 stacks, and then Accentato again, and then you repeat that, and then you just keep repeating this rotation. Okay. Now you might be thinking, which rotation is going to give you the highest damage? The answer for that is Stringendo Strike, because it gives you consistent damage throughout the entire rotation. It reduces the cooldown on Fierce Rondo significantly, so you can essentially spam Fierce Rondo. You will have an easier time proccing dash and calm. And the last one, which is the important one, you can bypass the attack speed. Now what do I mean by this? Remember the trick I told you about Stringendo Strike, where you can repeatedly left click during Stringendo Strike? When you do that, you will increase the attack speed. So there will be no difference between 80 attack speed and 100 attack speed. So instead of trying to improve your attack speed, you can try to improve your balance and critical. The reason why I show you all 3 rotations is because most of the time you won't be able to stick to just one rotation. Okay, the boss gonna hit you, you're gonna have to dodge, there are things gonna happen. So you most likely will do a mix of both. A mix of Marcato Rush and a mix of Stringendo Strike. And that's why I show you all 3. But ideally, you would want to use Stringendo Strike as much as possible. Now I'm going to show you this very rotation in a real battle scenario. Okay, we're getting towards the end here. Let's talk about gearing your character. First, you need to have one Berserk ES. Okay? You need to have one Berserk Enchant Scroll. And you can put it on your accessory. It could be your necklace, your earrings, your rings, your belt. It doesn't matter. You must have one. This will keep your stamina going. Second thing, let's talk about artifact. The only 2 you should have. Number 1, the werewolf paw. And number 2, mysterious cat statue. If you do not have dash and calm enchant scroll, I highly recommend you use the cat statue, because you can really benefit from the extra SB. However, if you can afford dash and calm enchant scroll, I highly recommend you use werewolf paw. It's gonna feel amazing with the extra attack speed, and you will have a much easier time proccing both dash and calm when you're using the werewolf paw. Okay? So I want to reiterate something here. I highly recommend you, if you're serious about whip, that you get a dash and calm, because it will allow you to do things that you otherwise cannot do. For example, if you do not have dash and calm, it will be unlikely for you to use the skill. Mana Capriccio is 750 SP. You can't waste your SP on that because you don't have dash and calm. Another one is Staccato Burst. This is 250 SP. You probably don't want to use this one either. And another one is double mana transition. You can't use mana transition 2 times in a row because you probably don't have the SP for that too. So again, these are the tools that will allow you to get extra mana, and that will help you for your overall damage. That's why I highly recommend you getting Dash and Calm if you're serious about Spellwhip. Okay, this is the end. I know that it was a lot of information in this video, and it could feel like it's really overwhelming. But I assure you, once you get a hang of it, it's not so bad, and Spellwhip can be really fun. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in-game or just leave it down below. I'll try to answer all the questions that you have. Okay?